Hi, everyone. Welcome to ElCo Chats. My name is Julieta. ElCo Chats is a regular podcast where we get to chat with El Camino College students, staff, faculty, managers, graduates, and talk about all things El Camino. For today's episode, I get to chat with Griselda Castro and Maribel Hernandez, counselors and co-coordinators of the Puente Project here at El Camino College. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to chatting with you both about Puente because it's a program that, as much of a difference as it makes in students' lives, has also impacted my life personally when I was a student at El Camino College. But let's talk about you, let's talk about the program, and let's talk about the students, okay? So first of all, just tell me a little bit about yourselves.
Well, good morning. I'm Griselda Castro. I'm an El Camino College alumni as well as a Puente alumni. I was Puente 4. I have been here at El Camino College almost 30 years. I started as a student worker, worked my way through different positions, transferred out of El Camino, came back during the summers to assist our division office with probation letters being sent out during the summers. Graduated. The dean at the time asked me to come in and sub for one of our advisors who was leaving for a year to experiment a counseling position at another community college. So I was just going to cover for a year his position as an advisor for probation and orientations. And that actually ended up being a coverage for about 3 years. Eventually, they opened the position, and I was lucky to interview well, and I was selected as one of the advisors for matriculation at the time. I worked in that hat for about 10 years. After which I continued my education, and I eventually received my master's degree and did a little bit of interning for counseling at Cerritos, did part-time there, and then they opened positions here at El Camino College. And in 2006 or 8, I can't remember now, I applied for a counseling position. And actually during that time, they had several positions at El Camino. There had been actually, I think it was statewide, a freeze. And when I applied, we needed counselors during that time. And actually there were 2 selected, I believe, and I was one of them. I had already been applying to various positions statewide. So I got lucky, I think. Well, maybe not lucky, but I was able to land that position here at El Camino. And again, it was with probation and matriculation. And eventually the position in Puente opened, and the dean always reserves the right of I forget how they call it, assignment. Mm-hmm. So she assigned me to Puente, and I've been in Puente since 2014, I think. So it's been quite a journey.
I was going to say, what a journey. You start here as a student and been here for 30 years, counseling, and now with Puente. Maribel?
Let's see, I'm from the South Bay area. Originally, I went to Hawthorne High School, and I went straight to UC Santa Cruz. At that time, community college wasn't the thing because everybody kind of talked down about community college, that it wasn't necessarily my focus at that time. And going to the 4-year institution, I learned a lot about community college and higher education and the Puente program at my university. And I realized that they had a lot of good things, that community college is amazing, is great, and it prepares the students. And having a program like Puente really helped the students to transfer, to, get educated, to have that second opportunity. And I realized from there that I always wanted to work with Puente. Mm-hmm. So when I finished my bachelor's degree and got to my master's, I realized that I wanted to do an internship in the community college with the Puente program, and specifically at El Camino College, because that was the community college I should have attended. Mm-hmm. So at that time, I couldn't necessarily intern with Puente because there was a shift of coordinators. But I got to do different areas and then came back to Puente, and I was able to bring in my sister. So my sister's an alumni, not only of El Camino College, but the Puente program as well. So she had an amazing time, great opportunities that really showed me that community college is really good. It's, like being in Puente really helps the students to transfer, to have that second opportunity. And so I, just my passion started growing to basically be in the program. Once I got hired as a counselor, a part-time counselor, I got to do different areas. And then in 2009, I got the opportunity to be selected to do Puente. It was exciting, definitely at the time, as a part-timer to really do this program, and you don't realize how passionate you get in terms of just building the program and working with the students, and how passionate you are to really help the students, get that education, that second opportunity. And especially as a first generation college student, I know how the students feel, being, first generation and not knowing a lot of higher education. I know that a lot of times the students felt ashamed because they didn't know about higher education. And it was so important for me to come in and be like, I understand you, because I am a first generation college student. Mm-hmm. I know what it is to not understand the higher education system. But being in there really helped, I think, me to connect with the students and see the passion for me to continue with the program as well. And especially when I got hired full time and we were able to open up 2 cohorts, that was super amazing, to really work along with Griselda as well. And so I've been doing Puente now for like 15 years as well. So definitely it's come full circle in terms of knowing that, I was always wanted to do Puente, and now I get to do Puente program. And we built so many connections with other community colleges as well in the Puente State office that is just really grown in terms of the program and what amazing things that we have done with Puente here at El Camino College.
Definitely amazing things. And so if, you're just tuning in now and you hear this word Puente, like, what are they talking about? But this is what this episode is about. And so I'm excited to get to some of the details and, what is Puente and why it's important. And I just remember hearing about it for the first time and people were so passionate about it, and I see it again. And so, let's talk about Puente now. So tell us a little bit about why this year is a special year for Puente at El Camino.
Well, as we have mentioned, Puente has had a long history here at El Camino College. It's been here nonstop, pretty much year after year since it first opened back in the early 80s. Actually late 80s. 40 years is not easy, and it has come a long way. It started with 1 cohort with English, and in English, basically the focus was to assist students develop their writer's voice so that they can learn proper English usage, proper English writing to help them become competitive with in terms of transferring to a wide range of universities. UC system mainly, since they are the ones who co-sponsor the program. So, and the focus is to try, or back then it was to try to assist students from the migrant community to help them stay in college, because they saw that there was a lot of desertion from Latino students, and they were trying again to try to help them become more stabilized, feel comfortable, create that family sense, so that students felt welcome and were able to focus and stay put, pretty much. But of course, situations are different. Now the focus has changed. We are open to everyone who is interested in learning about Latino literature. When I started, again, it was only 1 cohort, and I do see the benefit, again, being, as Maribel mentioned, first generation, not necessarily having higher education. I did. My mother, my parents did instill in us higher education, but of course, coming from a low income setting, it was a little bit challenging. And I would hear in my home the persuasion or the push to go study, over, higher than high school. But then I would also see, like, how would we do that? How would that be possible? Being a little bit limited with the language, having come to this country as an immigrant at 10 years of age, I felt I didn't have the English language or the writing skill to be competitive. My brothers, they started a little bit younger, and actually I have 4 brothers, and all of them have the history of El Camino alumni also, and also they are Puente students. So, but I felt that they were a little bit more prepared. They came younger, so they kind of learned a little bit more of those writing skills, whereas I felt like I was a little bit challenged. And in my case, I felt that imposter syndrome, even before it was called imposter syndrome, very prevailing. I felt that I didn't belong. And having been part of the Puente program, that helped kind of shed that feeling. I actually took a regular English course, and I didn't do so well. My teacher kind of told me, go see a counselor because you need to, kind of work on some skills. So as I was going into the counseling center, the counselor for the program was coming out, and he handed me the flyer for the Puente program. I didn't think much about it because I hadn't heard about the program. So I kind of put it on my backpack and continued walking, scheduled an appointment. And then at home later on, I looked at the flyer and I came back. When I came for my counseling appointment, I pulled out the flyer again. And actually the appointment I had gotten was with that same counselor that handed me the flyer. Of course, in passing, I didn't introduce myself. He just said, ladies, here's a good information about a great program that can assist you. And that was it. So, being in the class later on, that family environment, that cohesion, it made it possible to create or instill in me that trust and feel vulnerable, because we were asked to do a lot of essay writing and then share those writings with groups. And you definitely feel vulnerable to share your writing, and especially when it's riddled with a lot of maybe mispunctuation and all of that. And it was a little challenging for me to kind of read my writing and to kind of say it, because again, having that limited or limitations in English posed a little bit of challenge in writing, and I felt very, very exposed. But having that that support from the teacher, having the students also be supportive, it created that trust and the feeling of, knowing that I need this to help me overcome that and to help me change those that lack of skill that I didn't have, or that preparation that I didn't have, and to help me see beyond and to know that I could, go further.
Right. And so this year now, 40 years is a big milestone for students. And you mentioned a little bit from your experience, why and how Puente made a difference in your life. And so, I also remember when I first started El Camino, we had math and English placement tests at the time. And when I took the English test, I tested into college level. But I had already heard about Puente from somebody who graduated from the same high school I did. She came and she talked about Puente, and the word that she mentioned, which you mentioned it, but she said it in Spanish, was familia. And then I said, well, what do you mean you're going to get a familia experience in college? And so I gave Puente a chance. And even though I placed in college level English, I decided to take a step back, because you talked about those writing skills, which are important. And Puente definitely did contribute to, sort of polishing and refining and really, ensuring that we could identify ourselves as writers, finding my writer's voice, right? I still use some of those skills that I learned as a Puente student. My favorite line is, for example, the read arounds, right? So let's talk about some of those details. Again, 40 years is a milestone. And so now we started with cohorts, back in 1985, and we served maybe 30 students, 35 students, 40 students a year. Now we're serving 400 students, and Puente has very high retention and completion rates, and that's no accident. So what's driving the completion and retention rates?
I think a lot of it is that the Familia that you talked about, finding that group where they can feel vulnerable. That imposter syndrome will be lessened in when they're practicing their writing. I think for the Latino culture, a lot of the times our writing it's hard for us to express our writing just because we've been told that the writing is not good, or grammar or sentence structure. And a lot of the readings we've had, we don't identify with. Just like in high school, I remember that none of the literature represented me. And in Puente, that's what a lot of the students say, that, the literature didn't represent them. And here we're giving them literature that represents them. And so it's easier for them to basically talk about their life because now they can see themselves in this literature. They can write about that. It's okay to write about their story. So a lot of their story comes out and gives them those skills and that strength and that trust that they could basically be good writers. From there, I think the students go on to different areas or different pieces that they can do it, that they have that ganas, that, that they have that, how could you say it? I guess that power to be able to move in different directions. And I think that's what Puente gives them.
Yeah. I mean, you start with a family of students, a cohort, and you take the English class together and another class. But I do remember in my first semester taking a math class too, and that was not with the cohort. And at that time, it was a large class. And I remember thinking, oh man, there's so many people here. Then there was one student who walked in and I recognized him from the Puente orientation. And I said, oh, he's in my Puente class. So we immediately took this class, studied together, and passed this class. It was the class right before the college level math class. So it was a tough one. So that family aspect of it is definitely something that supports students throughout. And so you talk a lot about writing and you're counselors. And so we're wondering, well, why are counselors talking about writing and talking about English? But, there's a reason for that. So share with us a little bit about the importance of the relationships between Puente counselors and faculty and student success.
I think having a counselor come into the English class helps the student see how the counselor who has the knowledge of navigating the system. University has process and the college also rules and regulations will help the student transition. And then the instructor who has the focus of the writing and and it's the whole semester, seeing them working together helps the students see that bond between them. And it also helps create that bond not only with the class, but also with the faculty, and to see that the staff is there to support them. Mm-hmm. So in my case, whenever I needed information or help, or even like a letter of recommendation, and having the counselor coming into my class, and he would talk about how it is outside, and he would give us examples of why we should pursue our higher education. Helped me to, as Maribel was mentioning, in my case, it helped me to develop that, oh my God, I had the word and I tip of the tongue, amnesia. That drive, mm-hmm. It helped me to become a little bit more inspired and motivated, mm-hmm. to know that I had the skill. And then even though I would get a lot of my papers marked with red, I felt comfortable. The other side of the connecting with the instructor, I felt comfortable coming to her and asking for guidance. And I remember one thing, and being as a language learner, and for a long time, I didn't understand what she meant. She said, you need to think, or when you're writing on your paper, you need to pay attention to your thoughts and listen to your to your inner voice. That's where the writer's voice, I think, it comes in, because as we speak, that's how we write. And because, again, English being my second language, I didn't have that full command, and I didn't notice where the commas, the natural commas and pauses came in. So I would put them everywhere. And I would get my papers back with a lot of red marks. And then that's when she told me, you need to listen to as you're writing, listen to how you're pausing. And that's where the commas or the breaks naturally come in. But for a long time, I didn't get it. Now I do, now that I am able to actually think in both languages, because before what I would do is I would think in Spanish and then I would translate what I would write. So I had double the work. But getting back in, actually with our program too, we assist the instructors. They are so versed on their skill that they, in my case, again, they were able to see my needs, but at the same time see the needs of the students that were coming in with higher skills. And using the literature that they used will helped both levels kind of not feel isolated and felt integrated into the lectures and the discussions that they had in the class.
Yeah, so it sounds like the relationship of the English instructors and knowing what the counselor and how the counselor is able to support the student is making that difference, and having context too for the English instructors of what is happening, outside of the classroom, and the counselors, you're very much in tune as to what is happening in the classroom and outside, and you're putting that together for the students. And so when we're coming in as either first generation students, which is not a requirement to be a first gen student to be a part of Puente, but a large number of our students here at El Camino are first gen students. So when we're going through the college experience, I think it's that type of support from both counselors and instructors that really make the difference. And again, 40 years, it's pretty evident that it's successful here.
The foundation of the program basically started with that research. It started in Northern California in ElCo College, and the counselor and one of the English instructors were seeing that students from farm workers weren't transferring to the university, weren't completing community college. And that's when they began the research in 1980, seeing what the students really need in order to transfer to a four-year institution. And once they realized that the students needed English, that's what they needed in order to write, to be able to have that academic writing, to be able to transfer to a university. And then they realized that they didn't know the higher educational system. So they needed the counselor to basically explain that path to the students. And the third thing that is the foundation of Puente is the mentors. So they realized that they didn't have, because since they were first generation, parents didn't go to college, so they didn't understand higher education. So they brought in mentors that looked like them, that had already completed their higher educational system, and talked to the students so that they can help them succeed in what they needed in order to transfer. So the foundation was definitely, having the English and the writing portion, and having the counseling to really understand the system and how to transfer, and then having the mentors in order to help them, a second guiding person that basically is similar to their age, that went to the same pattern as them, because maybe the instructors didn't, or the counselor didn't have the same pathway as the students as first generation. And that's what really helped the students develop a lot more. And from there, 1984 or 83, the UC system picked it up, because they realized that it was a really good program that was helping the students, Latino students, and in that time, Mexican American students, to transfer to that four-year institution. So it has really grown from where it started the foundation, and then coming to all of California. And then now it has gone to Texas and Washington State. So definitely now making it a national program as well, not just a state program. So Puente has worked, in the Puente State Office, or in the state of California, it's been 44 years, and at El Camino, the 40th year. So it's definitely been a legacy.
Absolutely. Personally, Puente 13 was my year. Always very proud to share that. And so this leads me to this question here is, what does it mean when students say, once a Puentista, always a Puentista?
I think because of that family bond that we create within our cohorts. And then also having that connection with the instructors, the counselors, and then we, every year, when the new cohort comes in, the UC system sponsors a motivational conference. So students see other students from other community colleges, and they create that bond, and they create that sense of belonging. And that's what once a Puentista, always a Puentista kind of means, that bond within the students. Because again, being first generation, having that motivation that was instilled in us, having the same struggle, we identify with that. And that's where once a Puentista, we will always carry that with us. And that bond will never go away, basically. I think that's where, for me, that's what it means.
I agree. I know you were going to add something, but, also, again, as a Puentista, I think also when I hear I was in Puente, oh, you were in Puente too, that initial bond, you almost want to give back, right? And so a lot of the mentors who do return to the Puente program here at El Camino are some who were former Puente. Well, you're never a former Puente student. You're always a Puentista. Maribel?
Exactly. I think it's the identity, the Puente identity. Just like you mentioned earlier, Julieta, that when you went to a math class and there was nobody that you knew, but you found this one student that it was in the orientation and you can relate and basically connect it to that student. That's the same thing, the same power that happens when they transfer to the foreign institution, because such a huge institution, and they happen to meet another Puente student, not necessarily maybe from the same community college, but they're still a Puentista. And so they basically go to that Familia and that familiarity that they have, and then they can build connections. So that Puente legacy goes with them wherever they're going to go, either to a foreign institution, to a job, to networking, to, definitely helping them, develop that familia outside of the community college, and that confidence that they made it. So I think that's really important, that, they basically feel they were a Puente student coming into the community college, but then ended up transferring and then finding Puente in everywhere, in every area.
Absolutely. And it's that legacy of family, that legacy of support. I remember getting my papers back. They weren't with red ink. My English instructor at the time, she said, oh, no, we only do purple here. So I had the purple writings, but I think, it wasn't something when I got all these corrections on my papers, it didn't, cause me to feel like I wasn't good enough, or it actually motivated me to keep trying. It's like, oh, okay, I can make corrections here. I can update this. I can keep trying, get feedback from my classmates in my familia, in the cohort, and make sure that I could do better. So again, that legacy of keep going, keep going to your goal, your success, you're going to get there. And again, you have that support behind you. So now when we're thinking about advice that you want to give to someone who's thinking about applying to El Camino College and thinking about Puente and the 40 years of Puente here at El Camino, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about applying to El Camino?
I would say that it's a second opportunity that they probably didn't have before, that they didn't feel confident. I know sometimes the students feel that they make them feel in terms of the schools that they didn't make it because they went to a community college. But going to a community college, there's so many different resources. And I tell students it's so important that you look at all the resources we have. But definitely Puente, if Puente is for you, definitely come in. If you want to transfer to a foreign institution, if you feel that that's your goal, definitely come and join us. We will definitely help you through the process. I always tell my students, we basically help you from that transition from high school to community college to that four-year institution to your profession. Because we basically have students, already completed their bachelor's degree, their master's degree, and asking us for letters of recommendation, for a professional, for a master's, for a doctorate, so we feel really proud to see those students in that, trajectory throughout, 15 years doing Puente, 14 years doing Puente. I think that has just shown us how big the program is. Mm-hmm. And if that's what the student wants, definitely we can provide that and help them to that navigation as well.
I think the program does, seeing the mentors, creates that vision of what students can actually accomplish. And it really helps them to have those ideas more concretely set in their mind. And I would ask them to research and to ask their questions and to come in and definitely give El Camino or community colleges in general a chance. And to a lot of times students from high school may just be admitted to one or two universities, but if they return or come to the community college, they will open up their possibilities of possibly applying and being admitted to a wider range of universities, having already that foundation of lower division coursework done. And the other thing too, it'll help them to really set realistic goals, because they can see, and they're still at home, so they are coming to a college that's close to home, so they don't have that sometimes stress and that writer's block that may creep in, even though they are very well prepared from high school. And they transfer to maybe an out-of-state university or maybe Northern California, and being so far away, they get homesick. Here, they come to the community college, any community college. They have the opportunity to set, like I said, realistic foundation, and be able to give themselves maybe a wider chance of being considered, for other universities that they might have not been eligible from high school.
Right. And that was definitely my story as a Puente student. So I like how you said, to the student, do your research, look at the resources, but come to us. And again, and earlier when you first started telling us about yourself, you talked about this opportunity that you got lucky. And for me, it was a college and career center staff at my high school who sent a flyer and said, hey, you might want to go to this info session. I said, okay, I'll give it a chance. And again, hearing it, it's like, okay, well, that sounds good. And then I came to the orientation and I thought, okay, I think I can do this. But really, it does set the foundation. And I like how you said Puente at El Camino supports Puente at El Camino, and then supports you when you go to your 4-year, and supports you through your profession. I still had the relationship with my counselor once I got to the 4-year. Once I graduated from the 4-year, where she was able to provide guidance still on, what was next in terms of my career. So Puente definitely is a family. And for those who don't know, Puente is a bridge, right? Puente is a Spanish word that means bridge. And it is the bridge to success, the bridge to the 4-year, and the bridge to the students' goals. And I feel like your support and the support of the instructors in the classroom, you do an amazing job at ensuring that students can believe in themselves to go on and be successful. So thank you so much, and congratulations on 40 years Puente at El Camino College. We're excited to celebrate. You can't wait for the pachanga, as we like to call it. So
40 years, yeah.
Thank you.